time with me. My timing's always perfect for those kind of things. So, you know what? I'm running with adrenaline. I'm excited to show you guys about beauty photography today. I was here yesterday talking about posing 101. So, you know, feel free at the end to ask any questions you have. I'm really excited to show you what I have in store. And let's go with it.
Let's hand over to the lady, shall we? Awesome, let's do it.
Thank you. All right, so thank you guys all for coming. Thank you, family, on the front row, as always. I am going to be talking today about Beauty 101, things about poses, lighting, but I also kind of want to go back into how I started as a photographer, for those that don't know and for those that perhaps know a little bit. So I started photography 12 years ago as a self-portrait photographer. Actually, I'm from Tamworth, not too far from here, so I'm very familiar with Birmingham, which was the playground for many of my earlier shoots. Flash forward a few years, at 17 I opened my own business. Thank you MySpace and websites like that back in the day. So DeviantArt, I'm sure you all remember that. So I started doing self-portraits, which then led into doing fine art photography with my friends and people like that. And then I opened my business at 17 on those websites to take on personal clients that wanted fine art photography or pictures that they could put on their wall, beautiful fine art images. So from there, at 19, I moved to London for a year and came home and had to live in my little sister's bedroom for a year because I got broke. So what happened is I jumped to London, I went and started to do fashion photography, but fashion photography was very, very different to what I had experienced previously with the kind of fine art photography and the clients. So what I found was I had to kind of figure out what it was to get into fashion photography, and all of those mistakes and everything I'm talking about, I'll be talking about on the super stage today, straight after this talk. So I'll be talking about my 10-year evolution, because it's almost been 10 years to that day that I started my photography business. So today is all about beauty photography. So what is beauty photography? So beauty photography is essentially to sell a product or brand through styling and emotion. And beauty photography is pretty much the crop from here to here. So it's almost a portrait, or it's a very tight crop. And it's relevant to current trends or clients. So I always tell people in the industry, if you want to be a fashion photographer, it is so important that you pay attention to current trends and make sure that they are relevant. Make sure those trends are relevant. So I'm always researching, if I want to do this beauty shoot, what model am I going to be using and how does that trend work within the fashion industry today? It engages with an audience or target client, and also keep it simple. You wouldn't believe the amount of times I look at people's work, and it's something I've had to tell myself too, but when I say keep it simple, sometimes it's a matter of very simple lighting. It's about having a beautiful model, it's about casting the model correctly, it's just about keeping it really simple and making sure that what you're selling is relevant to the client. So because I'm on the Canon stage, let's keep it relevant to the equipment. So what lens? So when I'm shooting something like this at the very top, here was a YSL beauty masterclass I did with Harrods magazine. That was shot with the Canon 100mm macro. And the reason for that is because we want to get really tight and make sure the details and the pores and the skin are there. So for that kind of shoot, when someone says to me, I want to shoot from around here or really tight, I would go for something like the 100mm macro. On this one here, the middle one, that's the 70 to 200. And what I tend to do is I'm kind of around about 100mm or maybe more here, and that is a crop from here to about here. So when I'm thinking of my rules, that's generally what I go for. For this kind of portrait shot with the shoulders and maybe just turn to about here, leaving a little bit of a gap at the top, I'm using the Canon 85 1.2, but I would never go wider than that, because technically 70mm or above is 70mm roundabout is equal to what we see as the human eye. So it's important when we're doing beauty photography that it's very relevant to how we see. So 85mm all the way up there into the 100mm macro. So hopefully that gives you an idea about how I approach kind of beauty photography. So I put this one in there, and even though it's got some space at the bottom, what I found was this is essentially a beauty shot as well as a fashion editorial. So this was shot for Velvet Dubai, because it's very much about the hair and makeup credits. So when you are, and it's not, what I'm talking about is not just relevant for fashion photography, it's relevant for wedding, portrait, beauty. Make sure that every part of your image, and this is one thing that my first other agent in Milan when I was 19 told me, he said, you don't pay attention to the detail. And I was like, what are you talking about? Because I didn't what I mean is pay attention to every single detail. With beauty photography, it is essential that you put the expert in their place on hair, on makeup, on styling, that the model is cast well, because all of those things combined make a very successful image. And this is an example of that. This got a cover because we had a strong clothing credit, but we also had really great hair and makeup credits as well. And also the trends were kept in trend of what I was working with. So Hong Kong Tatler Beauty. So this was a little bit different for me because I'm not really a beauty photographer. I don't specialize. I dabble in it on the side of fashion editorial. But what I find when I shoot with this was actually shot with the 70-200, and this was cropped in later on. So another thing to think about with beauty photography is thinking about the space around your subject and also figuring out the crop. So a lot of my clients will say to me, if you're shooting for this particular magazine, please leave space because we don't know how we're going to crop them later on. We may place them smaller in the text. So for these examples, I shoot wider and then the client crops in. So a lot of the times I'm shooting for people like Harrods, people like Tatler, and they always say the same thing. And I'll have a digital tech on set with me, and a digital tech is essentially the guy or the girl with the laptop that's being tethered, and they have Capture One open, a program to kind of tether those images in, and they'll also make mood boards and crop the images as relevant to what the client's looking for. So that's a good example of that. This was for a magazine called L'Officiel Ukraine, and this is definitely what embodies a beauty image. It's a little pulled out, so yes, the clothing is a credit, but another thing to think about, and a big tip with beauty photography is make sure that your hair and makeup are aware of the light that you use, because if you use a harsher light and the skin is shiny, and then the hair has shine in it, you're going to get a lot of reflection from that, and it's going to blow those highlights out. So it's very important that you converse with your team early on in the morning, and you say to them, because I know that I favor diffused light. I try and replicate natural light in the studio. So for me, I like dewy kind of skin, and dewy is that shimmery skin, kind of where the highlights fall on the face. So I enhance that after with Photoshop. So what's important for me is I'm trying to get that feeling across with the beauty, but my makeup artists and hair people know exactly what I'm doing with the light, if I'm changing it up. So sometimes I'll say, well, today I'm bringing out the beauty dish, which sometimes I'm quite scared of the beauty dish. They'll go, well, we'll pull back a bit on the hair and makeup as well. So putting the expert in their place. Now, retouching is also a really, really important thing when it comes to beauty photography. So you can have a great model, you could have spent hours doing your light setup, you could have been really Hobbycraft. I was, with my family, went into Hobbycraft. I found these kind of paper backdrops that were literally about this big. I stuck them on the wall. I had one harsh Arri light that was probably about 600 watt, tungsten balanced, and I placed that up against the model, and then I cut, there was these kind of see-through shiny perspex like paper. I cut holes in them, I shot really wide on my aperture, and I shot through them. So that's giving you the effect of this up here. So I'm always experimenting. I'm shooting through prisms, I'm shooting through color card, because you know what? The best photographers are always experimenting and never accomplished. If you feel accomplished, then you've got to get out there and experiment more, because it's very important to keep that kind of experimentation going, the inspiration. Another example of that, we cut a heart out of here, and this actually got me a lot of job options. For me, spending the money and experimenting and making sure I had a great model and producing like something like this, what I found was it was getting me more job options. So always in mind, I say to people, shoot for your target client. So if you're not getting clients in fashion photography, or you want to, keep your target client in mind and make sure when you shoot something, you are shooting with them in mind. So for me, I'm thinking about Miu Miu campaigns, Prada campaigns. Stephen Meisel has them in his bag. It's not going to happen for a few years, but when I think about my clients, Harrods, Tatler, Elle, Vogue, British Vogue, I'm thinking about what it is they're shooting and how can I apply what I know and what I'm personally invested in and my voice of a photographer to that as well. So last one's on here. So this was a spread for Harrods magazine. So I had never shot anything like this before. I'm actually really scared of white background, beauty dishes, harsh light. So this for me was like, I'll do it because you're Harrods magazine. But in the back of my mind, I was like, shit, I don't know how to do this. So I got there on the day, I spoke to my team, I said, okay, I forgot my macro lens, what am I going to do? These mistakes happen. So I had a great team on set. I trust my digital tech, I trust my photo assistants. We all had that idea in the morning. Let's experiment before the client gets there. So we found the lighting that exactly the client wanted. We had it all set up. So again, another level of professionalism. But sometimes having this in your book and having the knowledge of this is so important. So you're not like me going into set going, I don't know what I'm doing with that. So I get asked a lot of questions about testing. So when I talk about testing with models, that's how I got into getting editorial work. So talking about testing, when I shot these girls, this is exactly what model agents look for in models' books. So if you approach a small model agency and say, I'm really interested in shooting your models, and they look at your book and it's poses like this, which I call the bellyache, the headache, the model mayhem, really out there clothing, pull back, keep it simple. Actually really take it back and look what it is. These were both shot with one light. So keep it simple. If you have to shoot with natural light, shoot some really beautiful images that connect you with the model, because those model agencies are going to look at these and think, these are going to sell my girl to the client if they're in their book. So keep it simple, make sure the connection's there. Another tip, make sure that your catch lights are always present in shots, because catch lights equals connection. If my catch lights are not present in one eye, now I always try and get that in camera, but if I don't, I clone one of them to the other eye to make sure that that connection is key. And when you're shooting beauty photography, it's more commercial, so we need that connection as well. Another example of this was took many years ago on the side of a fashion editorial shoot. So at the end of the day, I said, I'd love to get a close-up of you at the end of the day, and let's shoot something really simple with natural light. Same here. Let's stop the shoot being really edgy. Let's put that white top on, pull back, shoot with one light, process it in black and white. So I am building these images, so no excuses to anyone that wants to get into fashion photography but doesn't have the ability to do it. So my first clients who wanted to book me for fine art photography, I would take them at the end of the shoot and I would say, can I get one shot of you that's my vision? And that helped me build my portfolio to the next level. So that's how I've essentially built as well. I want to get in with lingerie clients, I shoot lingerie. So I want to shoot hair clients, I make sure that I shoot some hair shots. So that's my marketing strategy right now in New York and with a business in London. Who are my target clients with beauty? Because beauty is a huge seller in the industry. There's less beauty photographers than there is fashion. And what can I do? To kind of tick the boxes at an ad agency to be the relevant photographer. So that ad agency, when they are looking for a beauty or fashion photographer, can say, I'll think of Lara Jade, she does fashion, she does editorial, it's soft, it's feminine, there's great connection between her and the girl. She would be perfect for our brand. So that's how I've got from where I started to where I am today as well. Another example at the end of the shoot, and I can kind of get away with this a little more, where I'm just like, okay, at the end of the shoot, just strip off and I'll take a photo of you close up. But what I'm trying to do when I do that is approach this in a way of, I can create beautiful skin and show how that can be photographed. So don't always think it's about the clothes. Again, keep it simple, take it back. Keep it really simple. This is a beautiful, just simple texture backdrop that I have from Oliphant Studios. Having a grey backdrop saves your life, because you can shoot away from it and get a darker gradient. You can shoot closer to it and get it, a bit lighter. So I love grey backdrops for that reason as well. So let's head on over straight to our shoot next. And at the end, there's going to be time for a couple of questions, but I've got to dash straight to the super stage. So if you do see me around later, I'm also available for questions on this as well. As I would on set as well. So you're going to stay there for me. I'll talk you through it in a sec. Could you pull the light just a little closer towards me here? So we're shooting with today, and I just want to make sure I get this correct because I haven't seen the book. We're shooting with the Broncolor Move Kit. So the Broncolor Move Kit I like because it's versatile for both the studio and both location, which I love to have that option as well, and it's easy to kind of take around. So I'm using the scary light today, and I call this the scary light because some days it's my friend, some days it isn't. But what I've done with it, with the beauty dish, it creates quite harsh shadows. So I've pulled it back so it's less harsh on my model, and I also have like a diffusion grid on there. Can you just spin that round so you can just see the light? So the diffusion on there, I would say that's around a full stop of diffusion, so that's even more kind of diffused. Another way we could use the beauty dish is by putting on the hexagonal grill, the grid on top, like the kind of, looks like a honeycomb grid. You put that on with the honeycomb grid, that would make the light more focused on my subject. But right now, remember, I'm trying to replicate that soft light. She's got that lovely kind of skin, the dewy skin. So that light's coming in at an angle right here and softly shining on this face on here. And I often use the V-flat, or what we call the polyboard. So this is the white side, so that means that when the light's bouncing off that, there's going to be very minimal fill. Now I could put another light here, but the problem with that is it's going to be very intense. And I'm only looking for a little bit of fill on that side of the face. Now if I wanted to make it more dramatic, I would turn this side around to the black side, and I also put them on both sides of her and then put my light in the middle. So that will enhance any shadows and have more of a dramatic feel around the model. So it'll emit the light and it has these dramatic shadows. So it depends on where you want to go. For this particular shot, it's about the softness, okay? So, and we've also got a Manfrotto backdrop here, so feel free to head over to their stand and check out some of their backdrops, and Broncolor as well, because Broncolor I work with regularly. The Move Kit, as I said, is kind of my go-to for a lot of those kind of shots around here, giving space at the top. So let's just check the first shot, and I'll talk you through posing in a sec. I'm just going to do that light test initially. It's a good start actually. I'm going to go up to 160 on my shutter. So right now, I'm actually really down on my aperture because I want that softness. So I'm shooting on, let me go to, actually, you know what, I'm going to go to 2.8 on my aperture. So I've got a low setting on my lighting. I've diffused that light even more so I can shoot wider and softer. So right now I'm on 160 on my shutter speed. I'm at 2.8 on my aperture, and I have an ISO of 100. So I'm going to just take another shot of you there. Beautiful. Let's just see what we can. Okay, that's much better on the exposure. Perfect. So you can see actually, because that light is that side of her and coming down, we've got those great catch lights, which I mentioned is great for connection, but we've got this tiny bit of darkness, but it isn't completely in shadow, because we want that kind of portraity soft feel. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to start to work with you now. Alright, so my posing rules. So I did Posing 101 yesterday, posing for beauty. So posing for beauty is this square. So what can you do? It's all going to be about the shoulders, it's all going to be about the mouth and the eyes. So, and the emotion. So what I'm going to do first of all is, if you could just, and I always say this, roll your shoulder forward, just slightly, that's it. And I always like triangle compositions, and some of you may remember my seminar from yesterday. So triangle compositions are most pleasing to the eye and classic and work with my style. So if you're stuck with posing, triangle compositions are the best way to go. So you'll see that triangle, if you just turn to the audience, that she's making with her body. Okay, if you want to copy me as I go. So start with a crossed arm. Yep, soft hands, soft belly hands. Yep. And then pull your arms down to here. That's it. And then from the side, pull round like this. Yeah. And pull your arms to the front of you. Yeah. So I'm always creating that. And just roll your right shoulder forward for me to meet that one. Yeah. So I'm always working with that pose. It's rolling the shoulders. I always make the model relax their mouth just slightly. I don't want squinty eyes. I don't want furrowed brows. I want the relaxed look in the face and the connection with the catch lights as well. So I'm going to talk you through as I'm going as well. So, okay, let's start with, yeah, that's perfect. Bring your right shoulder forward just slightly and your left one just forward slightly, that's it. And bring your hands a little bit higher, because what we're doing is shooting to here. So this angle of the shoulder gives a really beautiful kind of line here on the body. And just put your chin slightly down towards me here, mouth open. Great. And that shoulder there, see the dress here? So just put your shoulder up a little more, yeah. Actually roll that one forward, you know, that right, left one. Yeah, roll it even more forward to me. That's it, yeah. Just making it, it's always having the stylist eye. Paying attention to detail is absolutely key. Beautiful. So remember, with the 85, I'm getting a little bit of detail at the bottom of my subject. That's what we have. both arms forward for me like this. Roll both shoulders forward just slightly. And kind of reach, yeah, that's it. Because I'm shooting from here, as you can see. Great, beautiful. And can you turn your body to the audience for me? Yeah, that's it. Move just a step forward and head to me just a little bit. Just if you turn slightly away, that's it. Roll the shoulder back just a little bit. That's it. Beautiful. And keep it back. Keep the elbow back this way a little bit more. That's it. So that beautiful line here. I want to see a little bit more line with the arm. Great. Relax that mouth. Chin slightly down towards me and eyes open towards me. Beautiful. See what we have there. Looks great. Just going to be careful of the bunching with this part of the dress. So if you pull that arm a little bit, you know what, actually put it forward. It's always paying attention to the detail of the dress because this would be a credit as well. That's gorgeous. Even looking down there is nice with the emotion. Beautiful. And can we repeat that once more, but eyes to me? Relax that mouth, chin down just slightly there. Gorgeous. It's coming through. I'll take one more. Let's hope that it's a lucky one. Always happens as soon as you mix. Okay, so right now I'm on 135 mil. So that gives me the angle from around here to around here. If I wanted it closer, I go in all the way to 200. So for this one, we're going to be really cropped in. So I want you to gaze down the camera, relax your mouth just a little bit, chin slightly down, and make sure those shoulders are quite strong. Yeah. Chin slightly that way for me. Yeah, that's great. And pull that shoulder forward, your right one. And I mirror pose, so I usually do it, or little hand movements, that's usually how I pose. Actually, if you grip your arms together, sometimes gripping the arms together, rolling those shoulders forward and pulling it in just slightly. Yeah, that's fantastic, beautiful. I shoot really quickly, so I'm not used to this slower pace, but if I wanted to do a lot of editorials with beauty are only 4 to 6 pages. They're not as big as like a fashion editorial spread, which is 8 to 10. So sometimes we ask for a page that goes over 2 pages, so an image that goes over 2 pages, and then the credits will be here. So I'm used to cropping in camera and knowing where my credits are going to go as well. So I'll always make sure there's an option of a landscape in there. So pull that shoulder more forward for me and drop the other one. That's it. I'm just going to... Can you just let go a second of your arm? Just pull it out. Yeah. You know what? Because this is such a finicky dress, I think it's better just to kind of put your hand up like that. Yeah. It's better than that, right? Just drop just slightly for me. That's great. Yeah. Always got to work with the clothes. Beautiful. So chin slightly that way for me. Yeah, beautiful. That's great. Roll those shoulders forward and really grip this time. That's it. Chin to shoulder there. Beautiful. Check that one, that's nice with the eyes closed, just a bit of emotion. On this one, eyes straight to me. That's it, beautiful. Relax that mouth. Pull out just a little bit because I like the sleeve there. Show that one. Gorgeous. Okay, thank you so much. Great. Okay, so any questions really quickly there before we... Questions? Yep.
Is there much of a difference between the sock and the why diffusion?
You know what? Not that I see. I don't really use this diffusion that much. I actually use the sock as a full stop usually. I don't see too much of a difference.
Hello. With your posing, do you always have your go-to set?
Yeah.
Triangles and the hands. Do you ever want to try something a little bit different, experiment, do something?
I do. I feel like recently I did a shoot for Tatler Hong Kong where my entire team was different, and I felt like the stylist really influenced that for me because the clothes were more cool girl, and I find that every time I work with different magazines, I have to figure out the way, what the editor's looking for. So in that instance, it was more just like sloppy posing, and the clothes and the girls spoke for themselves. So really, it's what kind of works. Like I always want to see, because I see personally my voice is feminine and soft, beautiful. So those poses lend towards that. But if it's something a little bit edgier where I can play, I'll definitely try different things too. And also having a posing reference board is key. I always take one with me to figure out if I get stuck with a pose, I change it up.
So you start with your go-to and
Yeah, it depends on the theme of the shoot, but generally, because I shoot a lot of actresses too, and actresses are really good to pose in classic ways because they're usually in something really classic as well.
Great.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, guys. I am going to be around. I've got to head to the super stage after this, so I don't have a ton of time for questions, but I will be around after that. I think my talk's at 1:30, something like that. I should remember, shouldn't I? But all
So,
right.
can we please give Lara Jade a massive round of applause? There was a lot of giving there, a lot of knowledge, so we really appreciate that and try and put that into practice. And if you want to have a touch and try with some of the equipment that Lara was talking about, please head over into the stand area where you have an opportunity to do that. I'm going to invite you to exit to